Hello, my name is Sabine Durrant. I'm a former journalist, now full-time novelist. I used to work on the Guardian newspaper, having been to studied English at university at Oxford, and always wanted to be a writer, and was first of all lucky enough to be an editor and a journalist on the daily newspaper. And then I moved into writing later in my career. I first of all wrote women's fiction, then I wrote some books for teenage girls, and then latterly, for the last 6 years, I've been writing thrillers. My thrillers are, I suppose you'd describe them as psychological thrillers. There are lots of different terms these days that are bandied around. Griplit's one, domestic noir is another. I like to think that I write the best of genre literature, the best of literary literature, and the best of sort of women's fiction, that they all come together in the kind of books that I write. I start with character. That seems to me the most important thing, and I like to think of a plot before I start writing. I like to write about people whose lives seem to be very successful, that they seem very settled in what they do, they're comfortable, they're smug maybe, balancing her life and her career very smoothly, who then finds a dead body on the common when running, and her life, she becomes sort of involved in the police investigation, she becomes a suspect, and everything on which she grounds the comfort of her life falls away. I've written about a man in my third novel who seems to be living a very smooth life. He uses people. He's a kind of almost a sort of drifter, somebody who's conning people a little bit out of things. And he finds a very wealthy woman whose life he rather thinks is rather attractive. He can imagine himself having really bettering himself through her. And he becomes entangled in her life in a way that he doesn't expect. And everything that he thinks about himself falls away. And then my most recent novel, which is called Take Me In, is about a couple whose child almost drowns on holiday and is rescued by a stranger. And they lead a very comfortable life. And this stranger then comes into their life in ways that they find very uncomfortable. My tips for budding writers of any genre, but particularly, I suppose, my kind of writing, is to write every day. I write 1,000 words a day without fail. Even here at the Tata Literature Festival, I'm writing every day in my hotel room before I come out. I think of characters. Absolutely, when I start writing, I think about a character and a relationship. And that the tension in that relationship is what fascinates me. So in the stories that I've talked about, it may seem that the relationship I'm talking about is between the comfortable character and the outsider, but actually quite often it's between relationships that are already existing on the page. Economy, I think that's very important. I think my journalistic career has been very helpful in that, in terms of really cutting out anything that seems extraneous, finding the detail that matters most, the tiny little detail about a person that will really tell you lots of things about their personality. I think one tip somebody said to me that I've really found very useful is when writing you don't have to really have plotted out your story before you begin, but when you're writing it, have the assumption in your head that this thing has already happened. You're not creating it as you're writing it. You are writing about something that has actually happened, and that makes you think about the detail, it makes you think about precision, and it also makes you cut out anything about yourself. You know, it's very tempting as a writer to think, what would I do in that situation? To think, what are my emotions? And I think one thing that writing regularly has taught me is that I'm irrelevant, really. It's the characters on the page that count. If I have one big tip, it's really, I suppose, is from personal experience, which is don't get cast down, don't be discouraged. There have been times, there was a terrible time about 6 years ago in my career when I'd written a book that I thought was really rather marvellous, and I'd given it to my agent, who's lovely and supportive, and she had helped me work on it, and one day she rang up and she said, I've been talking to lots of editors today, I've had lunch with one in particular, and I was thinking this is the moment. She sold the book, and she said, and I really have come to the conclusion that you should tear that book up. I think you should start again. And from that moment, it's a terrible thing. You think, do I change agents? Do I never write again? Or do I do what she says? And I did what she says. I cried for a couple of hours. And then I just thought, yes, I listened to what she said. She said, this isn't the kind of book that's selling. You have to be commercial in minded as a writer. Think about what kind of books people are buying and really think how you can hone your own skills to that. And that was really the start of my career really taking off. I've been much more successful since that terrible moment. So yes, keep going. Anyway, it's been just fantastic to be here at Satire Literature Live, and come on down. We're having great fun and there's loads of interesting people to meet and talk to. So thank you. It's been delightful talking to British Council and Aloud, and yeah, good luck with your writing.